Hi, welcome to another episode of Dawncast. My name is Kathy Ngo.
And I'm Di Lee.
All Australians have been affected by COVID-19, exerting a huge impact on the economy and our day-to-day lives. But what about international students? Students who have come from abroad to start new lives and opportunities in Australia. But how have they been affected? How are they coping? Has COVID-19 brought their dreams to an infinite halt? To enlighten us, we are joined by two highly esteemed award-winning lecturers, Dr. Yasvir and Dr. Sabrina from La Trobe University all the way in Melbourne. Welcome both. Welcome
Thank
to the
you.
show.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Thank you. Firstly, how is the COVID situation in Victoria at the moment and how are you both coping?
Yes, you guys, we're putting a border. Luckily, we are just.
But there has been
we're
so
in
much
lockdown.
of a divide.
2.0.
Yep. Yep. So everything's back to working from home. So we're in lockdown till the 19th of August for now.
Wow.
So everything's back to where we were in lockdown 1.0. Kids are back to online schooling, and we are madly putting all our resources online, which we were prepared for because we were going to deliver all our content online this semester. So in terms of that, we seem a bit prepared. Jasvir, do you agree?
I do agree. Like in semester one, we had to pause our teaching for a week. So we had to drop our research and whatever we were doing and skill up on how to teach online. And we had to be superheroes in a week on how to navigate online teaching.
Yeah.
And that's something that you've both been doing for quite some time before, isn't it? Because like online tutoring and everything is quite a common practice, but then now it's kind of like going from
Heightened, yeah.
like from like, I don't know, 20% to like 110%. So.
You're absolutely right. In 2016, at La Trobe especially, we were going all out for blended learning, whereby we have 1 hour online. Students have to review materials online, but they still have to come to class for 2 hour class with us. Some of them have to come 8 to 10 hours per week to the uni. But right now, it's totally 100% online.
Wow.
And I don't know about you, Sabrina, but in my classes, in the last class, when I asked students, how did you find that the subject this semester? And they were saying that nothing is wrong with with the subject per se, but we really want to go back to campus life.
Yep. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. You know, students found it convenient that it was online. They could wake up and just come whenever they wanted to class, and it was quite easy. They don't have to travel, but they really miss the in-person
Interaction.
context. And learning in person is quite different when you're in class, surrounded with your peers, learning in a physical space, compared to learning on your bed or in your bedroom, and you have your other family members and younger siblings around. And they might be on shared devices, and it's a home environment. So they really miss out on that. And they did mention that they would like to be on campus and have that opportunity to engage a bit more, have the feel of a university.
So how are the students coping then with the whole now a second lockdown, and it's really kind of really locking down, isn't it?
I guess students got the idea that, because communication was provided to them way back in semester one, that semester two, we will be going online, nothing changes. But of course, they were devastated by saying that, why? I'm like, we can't answer that, but that's how it is. So they were, not looking back to go online. They were looking back to go back to campus. But in these trying times, we all have to understand it's not in our hands. It's a global pandemic that has hit us.
Yeah, I agree. And students that I teach, because I teach in public health, and so students actually understand what COVID is about. And there's been a fair bit of awareness around with the media and with all the other resources and the communication the university has provided. So students have been aware and they are prepared. So the second lockdown I don't think in terms of their education, it would be a hugely different impact because they've experienced it in semester one. Um, it's just the ongoing issues in relation to COVID more broadly that would have a continuing impact, I think.
What about international students in particular? Like they're in completely new country. So some of them would be like sharing a house with like maybe 10 other people, something like that. And I mean, it's going to be such a challenging learning environment. So what sort of like, how are they coping, or perhaps they are quite resilient because of, I don't know, how they were brought up back in their kind of home country?
Yeah, so we've had a variety of different experiences that students have told us. So Jasveer and I, we conducted a study where we interviewed students from a South Asian background, so those from India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, that region. And we found that students who had arrived this year, so those who were starting semester one and came in February 2020, for instance, they struggled slightly more in adjusting because they were yet to establish their community connections. They did not have that time to immerse themselves within the university, get to know their peers, get to know the different systems that they have to be involved in. So those students, I think, found it a bit more difficult because COVID happened just a few weeks after they arrived.
Yep.
The students who had been here longer, or those who had already done a year or done a semester already, they had some established connections with the broader community, with their peers, and even in the living arrangements, they had people they could rely on because, you know, the families are back home. But they had managed to establish some sort of connections here as well. And that was helpful. Also connections broadly within the migrant community. So we found that the Sri Lankan and Indian communities, they stepped up and they provided, you know, like food resources, or you know, they dropped off staple food like flour and sugar and rice and all that for the international students. A lot of religious groups stepped up, churches, gurdwaras. They've been supporting the students a fair bit. So there has been community support, and students have found that useful. Other than that, back home, they have felt that, you know, that some parents back home have lost income or lost their jobs back home, and that's been a bit of a pressure on them that they need to help provide for that. So many students lost their part-time jobs that they were doing here that help support their day-to-day living. And they felt bad asking their parents back home to give them some more money, and so many have taken on extra loans to support themselves. Yeah. Jasveer, was there any?
My interviews looked at international graduates, like what you said, Sabrina. They were here longer, so they could adjust themselves. But having said so, those who have graduated just recently, like last year, they were having issues finding jobs related to their studies. So whoever I interviewed, they had jobs. So I did not interview those who did not have jobs in Australia. But those who have had jobs, they were also struggling because I interviewed 20 international graduates, where two of them, on that day that I was interviewing them, their contract was about to expire. So they were in this limbo, whether what do we do? Should we stay here? Should we go back home? The borders are closed. So that kind of state they were in.
How did you come to start this study, and why international students?
I was an international student myself, and I'm very passionate on researching on international students' matters. So I have researched on their academic success. What is academic success looks for them, or what is academic success for them? And then along that journey, I also wanted to understand the employability, understand the employment outcomes, and also understand why these certain cohort of international students, especially Chinese international students, are going back home to China, whereas in past years, when I used to ask students, would you stay home in Australia or go back home? And they would say that no, we want to stay in Australia because it's a land of opportunity. But when I started asking them the same question 2 years ago, and most of the Chinese students would say, I want to go back home to China. So that intrigued me to understand why do they want to go back home, what kind of employment opportunities do they have back home upon studying in Australia. So that was my first research in the employability space. Then I met Sabrina in one of the La Trobe ECR. ECR means Earlier Career Researcher events. And I know she was researching on South Asian migrants community, if I'm not mistaken. And I wanted to marry South Asian international students and employability. And then I hooked up with her. And this La Trobe and Metropolitan Manchester University grant came up, and both of us applied for that, and we got it. And that's how this study began.
So
And that's
Sabrina,
where my passion is. Sabrina?
Yeah, so it's a joint, as Jasveer said, it's a joint project between Manchester Metropolitan, which is based in UK, and so they're exploring similar scenarios there in UK, and so we wanted to do an international comparison. My interest has coming from a migrant background. I've always been interested in the migrant health and migrant adjustment to society and how they live in a foreign world. And coming from a health background, Jasveer and I thought that this would be a great combination of our skills and our experience and background that we can put together and then explore the international student area and their experiences as well, but also the graduates who have finished their education and what have the outcomes been for them.
And can I add a little caption there that we didn't know COVID is going to hit. So we were still
Neither did we.
interviewing.
no one did.
we
No.
Yeah.
It's timely though. We were still interviewing international students and graduates, and when COVID hit, we were like, okay, we can tweak a little bit and ask their experiences pre-COVID and real-time COVID. We are not post-COVID yet. So we wanted to know what kind of, real-time problems they were having in terms of employability and also their experiences per se staying in Australia.
So just on that research, what is their employability after they graduate? So let's just say, like you were saying, that most of them want to stay in Australia because they feel that they've adjusted to Australia.
But I think you mentioned South Asian, isn't it? That's wanting to stay. Interestingly, not the Chinese.
Yes, you got it right. See, Chinese international graduates will want to go back home.
Yeah.
But South Asian graduates would want to stay in Australia. So there are two different cohorts here.
Yeah.
Very interesting findings. So I interviewed them by asking, why would you want to stay in Australia? First, lifestyle. We like that laid-back lifestyle. We like that there's no pollution here. Back home in their countries, such as I interviewed those who coming from Bangladesh. I interviewed those coming from India. And they like that very easygoing lifestyle here, where they can make something out of their degree here in Australia, as compared to back home. So that's why they really, and none of them talked about parental pressure. That my parents want me to be here. Not that sort, but mostly I think they are doing it for themselves and for their future.
One thing that I have noticed, and I mean, I haven't done any research on this, but like the South Indians that I have spoken to, they have so many degrees. I'm so amazed. Like, where do you have the time and plus do all these other jobs as well? Like, there's obviously this thirst and hunger for knowledge and academia and all that. Why
There's also a cultural expectation at one level where, coming from a South Asian background myself, it's expected that, yes, you will go to university, yes, you will get a degree, and now it's, even more that you'll get a
doctorate
degree.
a doctorate, a PhD.
So you
PhD.
You've both made your parents happy.
Definitely. Yeah. So it's I think it's that cultural background as well. that a lot of South Asians do, especially those from the middle class and those particular socioeconomic categories, where they try and strive to get more education.
And you'll be surprised though, when I ask them, what are you doing in this COVID? How are you upskilling yourselves? And they were saying, oh, I've got this free LinkedIn learning thing that I can go into because I'm an alumni and I was an international student. So they keep on upskilling themselves via LinkedIn, or they see YouTube. They also do short courses in TAFE. So yeah, you are right. Like, I didn't think about that when you asked that question. They're just like full on, I would say.
So where do you think this expectation comes from?
The parents, right?
Like what
Is it
Sabrina said, right?
is it parents
Parental
only? Is it parents only? Do you think?
Just the whole culture, right? Like
It's it's the society pressure as well. There's well, if you consider South Asia, the population is so immense. There's a lot of competition, and in order to get jobs that perhaps pay well or are considered more reputable, or more appreciated in society, or in South Asian society, and education is required for that. And so I think it's the drive from society, it's the drive from parents, it's the drive to show that you're successful as well. So all these factors that link together.
I'm just curious, does the expectations change once, depending on gender as well? So, particularly around parenting and that sort of expectation, like, the question of when are you going to get married, when are you going to
The
have
kids.
Like, is there the education kind of expectation, is it different for genders, or what is it like?
Yes and no, depending on what background you come from. Yes, boys are given the preference. I can say from an Indian context, coming from North India, from Punjabi background, yes, they are given a preference. However, it is changing now, and girls are, at least in some parts of society, girls are given that opportunity as well, where they can attain and can have those aspirations as well. Yes, it's a changing, evolving situation where you can find cases where girls don't get to go to school and have to be employed and gain money for the family, but then you can see girls who have achieved a fair bit in society and have reached positions of authority and influence.
I interviewed 9 female graduates, and I think there were 2 or 3 married graduates, but the rest was single. So they didn't talk about marriage as one of their plans and staying back in Australia. So they were more inclined talking about what are their career plan in Australia.
Wow.
It has changed a lot. Like, I finished my PhD after my marriage. I actually enrolled in my PhD after I had my first daughter. She was 8 months old. I've had 2 children. My husband's been very supportive. The family's been extremely supportive. So yes, you have both scenarios where you do it prior to marriage and then after marriage as well.
The same with you, isn't it, Yasva? You've got a family too.
I was doing my PhD, and then I got married a year later, and I'm stuck here with him here.
In the same room?
In the same house, in the same room and everything.
You're stuck for another 5 weeks.
So going back to your research in terms of the employability of the South Asian international students, could you give us an insight into that study? Obviously pre-COVID and during COVID now, what you have found?
Yep. So I can talk from the students' perspective because I interviewed the current students, whereas Jasveer looked at those who've graduated and found employment. So prior to COVID, the students that I interviewed, they did say that they faced difficulty in finding employment. And it wasn't just employment in a occupation that linked to their degree. So for instance, if they were doing a degree in IT, it wasn't necessary that they were just looking for jobs that were in IT. They were looking for any casual jobs. It could be in retail, hospitality, any other sector where they could get some income to support their day-to-day living. And many struggled with it. There were barriers such as not knowing how to navigate the system, not knowing where to start, not knowing how to go about doing it. A couple said that they felt that they perceived a bit of racism as well. In group interviews that they did, they felt that they weren't asked enough questions during the interview, that they were neglected a bit. So yes, they did have, difficulties in getting employment. COVID exacerbated those issues because now they can't actually go out. They don't have any connections. They don't know how to go about trying to find these jobs. And those who had jobs actually lost, many lost their jobs as well. So it has been a bit difficult, quite a bit difficult for them.
From the international graduate perspective, excuse me, while they were international students, they could find jobs once they come into, once they have finished their semester one, they were striving in finding jobs not related to their studies. And they also admitted that was their biggest mistake, because upon graduation, to get into, let's say, for example, the IT line or the public health line, there's no related experiences. So they are strongly suggesting to current international students, future international students, do not just work. Please find work that is relevant to the industry or to the studies that you are doing. Because upon graduating, it is harder to get a job because you're on TR for 2 years. And make it worse, employers do not understand that they have got full working right visa. So it's very hard for them to get jobs in their relevant industry. But having said that, although COVID happens, but there were 2 or 3 international graduates got jobs, especially in IT, especially in telehealth. So there is a mix of, or should we call it a spectrum, a very gloomy spectrum and a very bright spectrum. But many are in the middle, where one of them finished their degree in accounting, but he is working as a store manager in Big W. Nothing related to accounting, and he is finding that difficult to get a job in accounting profession.
So for the students that are successful, what are they doing differently, do you think, in to be able to get a job?
Networking.
It's always
it's who you know.
It's
right?
who you know, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean,
They are singing that song of who you know, not what you know.
My God, like that old line, like it's. I think it's gone. Probably back in ancient time. Who did you know? I'm gonna, give you the clue.
Yes.
You're a master networker, Di, so I know that it's certainly worked out.
But having said that, they don't know how to network. They don't know.
That's it. That's another one. Absolutely.
There is a gap there. There's a very huge gap there.
And they're exactly, and they're new in the country, so they don't have those established connections. They don't have family here who can support them and say, why don't you go chat to them, or have that established base. And so getting to know your own migrant community has been useful for some of them. There's a couple who said that they go to their a local church and they've met people through there. Or through other community-based organizations that are, migrant-focused organizations like the Indian Association or other such groups. That's where they have met people and are able to network. And then some have done it through platforms like LinkedIn, or through the university they contact through their lecturers. They might have had a symposium or met people through that. But it's knowing how to do it and pushing yourself outside your comfort zone to network.
Yeah, that's right.
I agree with that, Sabrina.
Yeah.
Because graduates who were international students were saying that they were apart from the La Trobe community, where they got involved in the society, in the clubs. They bugged the career success people. and then they attended workshops on how to network. So they are doing pretty well actually. And they were in this mentoring program offered by La Trobe University, where they found their internship via that mentors. And then it snowballed after that. But those who did not attend the university functions or events, they are finding it so difficult.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do.
It is a common theme, isn't it? No matter where you go, where you're from, it's all about who you know. But like, I don't know if it's like this in South Indian culture, but I know that in Southeast Asian culture, we're always taught like, if you work really hard, people will notice and people will tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, you want to get a promotion?
No, it doesn't happen.
Work that way. It never works that way. So is it like that also for South Asian backgrounds as well?
There is a culture where you're encouraged to work hard, and you're always told, work hard, do your best, keep studying, study, and you will be successful. I guess it's luck as well, whether someone notices it and you are pushed up the ladder, have a promotion, or whether it's someone or it's your own initiative that you've pushed yourself forward. Yeah.
I guess those international graduates who have got jobs in their field, right? What I notice is they persevere and they know from day one what they want and how they want to get it.
Yeah.
So I think they have done their homework and they bug people like hell. Some of them were saying that I literally email this lecturer or this person or whatever every week, or just bug them. Hello, I'm here, and I did that too.
Oh, you did that too, Jasmine, did you?
Yeah, I did that. I do that.
I love it.
Most of the time I get tired, but then that's how it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
You want to get something, you need to reach out. People are not going to reach out to you. And I'm a Malaysian. So in Malaysia, we are taught that exactly what you were saying, that, people will notice if you do your work well.
Yeah.
But it doesn't happen here.
It's like for every 10 no's, you get one yes.
Yeah.
Use that as a guide.
10 no's, I think 100 no's and one yes.
That's pending.
The scale. In terms of the crisis of COVID-19, how is that impacting the students and the graduate's career, do you think? Did you look into that as well in the study?
Yeah.
So students, the students actually said they have less opportunity for internships and placements because they've been cancelled because there's lockdowns, and a lot of organizations have shut or closed those sort of opportunities. So students are really struggling to get that sort of industry experience that would have been helpful once they graduated to get employment, because that's some sort of skill that they can show or experience. That's been one of the biggest factors, that they're not able to get that through the course, although we are striving on trying to get them other opportunities, like in-house experience within the university if they can't go outside, skills that can be transferable from university to outside. So yes, it's like Jasmine said, it's a spectrum, that there is a really gloomy side where things have not worked, but then we are trying to create the other opportunities and make it so that students are able to benefit from those opportunities as well.
And for international graduates, plans are definitely interrupted. They say that it's harder to network where they really want to have coffee with prospective employers or employees working in that organization, and they found this person via LinkedIn. So it's very hard to have that face-to-face meeting. As what Sabrina said, harder to get internships. To those who have just graduated, they want to get internship to get their foot in the door, so to speak. Contracts might not be renewed due to financial cuts. As I have mentioned, there were several international graduates that I interviewed. That was their last day. But they were very optimistic that I think I'll get my contract renewed. But I didn't follow up with that. I didn't know how to. If they were not their contract was not extended, I didn't know how to console them. So I'm like, okay, I don't want to disturb them. And also some of them want to do and they want to do PhDs, so it's harder to get scholarship to do their PhDs. So yeah, definitely plans are interrupted.
And I believe you've got figures, or you've got some graphs to show the impact of COVID on the international students and the international graduates. Is that right, Yasvi?
And no, we don't have graph, we have words.
You have words. I thought there's a little note in here that says that there's some there's a
The slides.
the slides. Yeah.
Yes, we do have that. I think provided to Audrey. I think.
Yep. Yep. So in terms of navigating the job market, then, so if everything else is a challenge, I have no doubt that the job market is completely like.
There's also another challenge, like I was just thinking, because we are talking on Zoom as well. Yeah. Like not only getting the interview, well, actually, once they do get the interview, they have to practice online virtual interviews as well, which is a completely different skill. Like there's all these like elements, like what your background is, noise, and yeah, it's just another layer of challenge.
Definitely. And at La Trobe, we've got a career service which is offered to all students, but it's also offered to graduates for up to a year after they graduate. They can seek that service, and so they help prepare students. So if someone is going for a job interview, they can help with a practice run with that. They help overlook your CV as well and give you feedback on your CV. What to expect in an interview. So we do have, and I'm sure other universities have those sort of services as well, where you can help support the students and better prepare them for the market as well. Often a lot of the academics are quite helpful too. So if a student approaches an academic, we will, give them some guidance on what they can do or how they can best prepare as well.
Like in my subject, I do embed employability skills, like interviews, and one of my subjects, there was this assignment that what are their career plans. So they have these reflective questions that I provide to them, and they have to answer those, and that got them thinking. Okay, how am I supposed to navigate my career? But having said that, even the international graduates, what they are doing now is they are updating their CV. They are also learning how to interview via YouTube. Yes, they have got these career services opportunities provided to them, but they are also upgrading themselves via learning from YouTube, and also how to skill up their LinkedIn profile and so on and so forth. So they're not stopping there.
Yeah. On the note of career services, as you were mentioning before, Sabrina, what do you both think of the career service information and all of this careers advisory roles that are offered? Do you think they are kind of up to date with the skill set that's required, or the knowledge of people from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds? Because I think these career services, I think they were set up, back in the 70s or whatever. Today, we have a different population altogether, and I wonder how much do these career services associations and industry professionals really tune in to the needs and skill set of the cold community, if I can put it that way.
Do you want to answer it, or do you want me to answer?
You go for it.
Go for it.
Now, international graduates did mention that, though, that, if I want to go back home, they don't know how to do my CV. Like, when I interviewed international graduates from China, so they didn't go to career services because they couldn't get anything out of them. And also international students, they have to practice their accent, their English accent, where they are not getting help in that perspective. So bulk of the job, actually, international students or graduates will have to do on their own rather than depending on career services. And they also mentioned that when they brought their CV, not much help was given on how to navigate or how to, what kind of information is needed in the CV. So that was what my international graduates were talking about.
Mm, mm. Had mixed experiences that the students faced. So there was a couple who felt they got a lot of support from career services. Some didn't even know it was there, that they had this service available and that they could actually tap into it. Maybe perhaps those were the more recent arrivals here in Australia who were still not, aware about what services are on offer. And then a couple, they said that they wanted more tailored services that were more specific to their needs and not just a generic service. So for instance, there was one student I interviewed who wanted to update his resume and had provided it to the careers team, and then they gave feedback and gave it back to him. But he didn't know how to take action on that feedback, and he wanted more one-on-one sort of consultation on how do I do it? Can someone help me fix it? And he actually said, I found it easier that I'll pay someone $90 and they would do my CV and then they would send it to me rather than I sit down and work through the CV. It is a skill though, because you need to tailor your CV to the jobs that you apply for. You need to know what you include in it, how you address it. And as Jasveer said, in many of our subjects, we have employability, we have placement subjects, but it's at different year levels and different courses. It's not a university-wide thing that everyone gets to go through those employability skills or training. So yes, the experiences are very diverse on what the students have faced or what they think they need.
So do you think career services and the likes of career organizations offering careers advices, is that out of date? Do you think the system has to somehow shift or change to be in line with the diversity of population and talent that we have in the workforce or potential workforce today?
Perhaps, yes. I think I wouldn't call them outdated as such. I think they have tried to progress and try to move with the times, and they have tried to reach out to students and say, look, hey, we're here, we can provide you services. There's always room for improvement, definitely. And if we can understand what the specific population needs are, so there's specific pockets of student groups that are missing out or require very tailored information, then yes, there is room for improvement in that context, that we can help cater to the needs of that group.
I think the missing is how, it's not what. Like, how do you do this? Or how do you do X, Y, Z, or ABC? Not what you do this. So that's how you bridge with the culturally diverse people, like international students and international graduates. It's like not only giving services that they're going to work in Australia, but worldwide. Like they can go to a third country but they have that how to do it perspective.
Now, why are you keen to share your study? What do you hope to achieve from this?
What do we hope to achieve? Well, it's always a better outcome for the graduates. They and the students. They have invested so much time, so much money, so much of their life, all the energy that's being put into trying to gain an education and then therefore have a better outcome. If we can take a step in that direction where we can help with that, what they're striving for, have a better, they have a better success. And if they want to stay on in Australia, as Jasveer said before, that many South Asians come here so that they can establish themselves here and become, contributing citizens. How can we help with that? How can we ensure that they have, better outcomes overall in terms of employability, life satisfaction as well? What can be done? What steps can be done to help improve their entry into the job market as well? And what skills do they need for that?
And who reads journal articles anyways? So
yeah, not us.
Well, we'll take a read. I've got time tonight.
that is a requirement for us academics, but to reach out, to have an impact on international students or international graduates, and through Dawn, that's what we are hoping for, that they could pick up some tips and tricks that we have discussed before, and navigate their life and also their employability in Australia, in their home country, or even in the third country. That's what we are hopeful for.
And
Networking.
Yes,
Yeah.
network,
Yes.
everyone,
Look,
network.
that's what we try to do here at Dawn, to kind of get that message out to our very culturally and linguistic diverse communities, like, to just learn to network, because that's such a crucial part in getting employment, or even not just employment, getting promotion, or getting somewhere.
And getting a sense of belonging. Like when you network, when you know more people, you feel you belong to the community, and you feel happier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also,
Absolutely.
I'd like to add also to ask for help as well. I don't think many of us ask for help enough.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously both didn't experience COVID-19, during your tertiary years here. So, however, did either of you share common experience or obstacles with the students you studied? Like, are there any common experience that you, in terms of obstacles?
So I came here in Australia to study my master's and my PhD. So during my master's first semester, someone told me that you have to open your mouth very wide. It means you have to ask for help, and you have to say what you want.
Right.
And when I did that, I landed up a job as a RA, research assistant.
Oh,
And that paid a hell of a lot that time. And I could, go out every weekend with my friends and, have my whatever meals I
fabulous.
want. Then when I came back here, I took a year break. And then when I came back here to do my PhD, I practiced that. I opened my mouth very wide.
like, I said, physically wide, like that.
Very wide.
And metaphorically as well.
Of course, I didn't get a job within my first year of my PhD study, but I was very persistent. I was like, knocking people's doors or emails or whatever, and then landed up a job as a tutor at Monash, and then it's just snowball after that. Of course, I'm an outlier because I had government funding from Malaysia and also from Australia, so I did not experience financial difficulties while when I was an international student here. So that's how I always say that I'm very privileged and I'm very thankful to what that I have had. But yes, along that journey, I had my employment difficulties as well. So, but that one advice that I got during my master's, that is to network and open your wide mouth and as wide as you can. And that's what I told my friend who came here to do her master's. And I was proven right. She got a job as a tutor. There you go.
Sabrina, what was the advice to you?
Similar to Jasware, persistence was a big thing. I came here when I was 17, but the difference was my family actually migrated, even though they came after me. So that we had got the permanent residency, and then I came first just because university was starting. So I came for my undergrad. Finding the first job was probably the hardest thing. I started off as a restaurant kitchen hand at $6 an hour, and I started there, worked there for a couple of months, and then moved on to retail, where I worked throughout my undergrad. So I stayed in the retail position at that when I was studying. So like Jasware, I didn't really have financial issues as much because my parents supported me. I didn't have to worry about how many hours I was doing because I was on a permanent visa. However, I married an international student who was from India, and he was doing his MBA, his Master's of Business Administration, when I met him here. And he really, used to work really hard, trying to pay his rent, trying to pay all those things, and then trying to establish his networks as well and meet people and get the first job. First job is always the hardest. And then, the expectation is like, I've done a master's. Why do I have to start as a bank teller? And it's understanding that, but then working your way up, which is it's a different system here compared to overseas. And how you work your way up the ladder as well is quite different here.
And how was, the advice was to Open your mouth wide. Was there any very good advice that was given to you? Because other than being persistent, how do you get that first job? How do you get that foot in the door in that first paid job? It's really
I I think it was just keeping your eyes open, just keep looking, keep applying, keep trying, keep persisting. Talk to people as much as you can. Communicate within your if you're comfortable within your community group, within your migrant group. So if you belong to an Indian community, network with people within that group, and then go beyond. So yeah, it's about opening your mouth, as Jathri said, talking to people, getting to know people, and talking in the sense that you connecting online as well. So, you might find someone on LinkedIn. You don't just send them a LinkedIn request. You say, "Hey, I really liked your profile. I really like the where you've got up to and what skills you've got. Can you give me any advice on how you've got there? What steps can I take to improve my career?" And just creating the dialogue, trying to, don't just say, "Yeah, I'd like to connect with you." Say something else.
And is that
I
the
agree with
advice?
that.
Is that the advice you give to your international students? The advice you give to them?
Yeah, and probably even the domestic students. Many are young. Many come from rural backgrounds within Australia as well. So it's about talking to people. We're social beings. Humans are social beings. We need to connect. And if you have a common ground or common place, you can connect better. And
That's right.
yeah,
I understand that, for international students to open their mouth very wide is difficult. I had that problem. I really had that problem. But I just had to come out from that shell.
yeah.
And like what Sabrina was saying, that I'm looking for XYZ job. Do you have any? And I just went to the professor. It was a professor. I'm like, okay, he looks nice, so let's and I want to do my PhD. So and I talked to him about my PhD, and then I didn't know that I had to do several research methods papers before I can get into my PhD program. And luckily, I opened my mouth. Otherwise, I will be like, oh yeah, in La La Land. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to do my PhD because that was what the scholarship was all about, masters and PhD. So it's very hard. I understand that, but you have to start somewhere. And last year, I got involved in the alumni conference at Monash, and I presented in a workshop on how to network, where to network, what is your locus of control. So we had all of that practices or activities in that workshop, and that was a very hot take, I would say, because international students do not know how to network, or how wide should you open your mouth, or how just right, and all of that. Yeah.
As long as
Yeah.
they don't let the flies in. The outback, especially. The Australian talk with the things like that.
Yeah.
So what's next? What's next for both of you?
So we do have a few ideas in the pipeline. Since we've got the perceptions of international students and graduates, we were thinking of perhaps talking to the academics, but also talking to the local students, the domestic students, on how they interact with international students. What do they gain, and how can they benefit as well, and how can we increase the relationship between both domestic and international students? So it's a mutually beneficial relationship for the two.
Because what we found is, like, you can see international students at one cohort, domestic students on the other cohort.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
we want to study how can we bring them together?
Yeah.
Why are they not integrating? See, international students have been coming to Australia for 2 decades now, if I would say, since 1980s. Of course, it went viral in last 10 years, but why do we still have these two distinct cohorts? So we want to talk about, or we want to explore why that happens, and then how that can trickle in their everyday life as students, and then how that can have that opportunity in their employability on their employment. So yeah, we want to embark on that project.
And we're a diverse community here in Australia. So if we are more open and more inclusive, and how we are able to do that for the international students as well, many of who then go on to become Australian citizens later as well.
And one more thing, because government is pushing or attracting international students and graduates in the regions, we also want to look into why regions, or what are the problems for these international students and graduates in the regions, and how are they mapping their employability. So that will be also our next project.
Well, it doesn't sound like you're going to move out of academia anytime soon. You're not going to branch out of...
If we are not kicked out, then yeah.
You're stuck, literally.
Well,
With each other, huh, Sabrina?
yeah.
Well, thank you so much, both doctors, for coming on the show today. We really enjoyed the conversation about international students.
Absolutely.
And
Thank you.
so, guys, that was Dr. Sabrina and Dr. Jasvit. Thank you so much for watching Dawncast. My name is Kathy Ngo.
I'm Dai Lee. Make sure you subscribe to our channel. Just click on the bell.
Yep.
That way you get notified of our upcoming stories and programs that we broadcast.
Yeah, and if you've got a story to share as well, please let us know. Get in touch with us so that we can shed a light on your story as well. Thank you for watching, everyone.
Bye.
I think we need like a little drum set or something.
Yeah, we do.
Or maybe like sticks just to kind of like...
Guitar.
Oh, there's a ukulele over there.
There you go.